Hello everyone. So we are going to start this session, and I know we received a lot of interest for this topic, NGO visibility in the age of AI. Actually, we first got this idea at the last AMEC summit after a presentation from Johnny, and we thought that would be really of interest and really timely for the whole non-for-profit group at AMEC and for our OECD colleagues. We all know that this year brand visibility has been really transformed, and we have now close to 90% of B2B buyers who are going to generate over traditional search to help make a purchase decision. But we know that AI systems don't just supplement decision making, but they are actively shaping how our stakeholders are perceiving our organization, and we know that we are all looking at monitoring our reputation. So what we wanted to do today is really to learn how in this new landscape we can ensure that we are aware of our presence on Gen AI, such as ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and other, as it will matter increasingly for us. And I'm very glad and very happy to have Johnny joining today. So Johnny Bentwood is a Global President, Data and Analytics Expert and Executive Board Member at Golin, who's an AMEC Awards winner every year, and with recent. He's been an innovative leader with 25 plus years of experience in communication, with many clients such as Facebook, Unilever, Heineken, Barclays, HP, Microsoft, and the list goes on and on. And he has a proven record as a creator of pioneering solution with an ability to transform business and really create impact. So we are really lucky to have him here. I will now hand the floor to Johnny. Thank you, Johnny, for joining.
It's my pleasure. And hello, everybody. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you. But when I do these presentations, I can't see you, unfortunately. So if any of you have got questions, will you do me a favor? Could you put them in the chat? And Camille will interrupt me at relevant times and say, stop, Johnny, we've got a question. So, or if you've just got some feedback as I'm doing it, just type it in there, because it's really tough doing these webinars when I don't get to interact with you personally. So I'm going to share my screen. Camille, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about visibility in the age of AI. And it's all around Gen AI, because I sort of like to think about this as there's been a few changes in my life when I feel like everything's just gone crazy. Those of you who remember the dot-com boom, it was like that. And then when the iPhone came out, that was another one. I would say this is that third tipping point when everything has changed. And it's pretty exciting, because you'll hear me talk about a few points over and over again. But one of the ones I'll keep on coming back to is that no one's doing anything yet. And if at the end of this call you're thinking, I'm scared now, it feels like there's so much to do and we're miles behind, I just want to be really clear. Everyone is miles behind. We're at the start of the most exciting part of marketing I have seen in my career. But what's really exciting about it is that no one is taking a lead, and the people who are responsible, who've got the best chance to take a lead, strangely enough, are you guys on this call. Because if you're thinking, whose responsibility is it to increase your visibility in Gen AI? Is it the SEO team? Is it the advertising team? Is it the in-house team or whatever? No, let me be really clear. It's you. So in today's webinar, I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm not just going to talk about, here's some amazing stats. I'm going to try and teach you guys the narrative about what you need to say to your peers and to your boss about why this is important. I'm also going to give you some tips about, these are a few things that you could do right now to make a difference. I'm also aware that whenever you've seen a lot of these presentations in the past, and I am as guilty as anyone, they are they're geared towards companies like McDonald's or PepsiCo, or maybe in the B2B space like Adobe or SAP. And you're thinking, yeah, but I'm an NGO. Can you please make it relevant for me? So I've tried to make this purely relevant for the NGO audience. In the process of this, I've picked a few of you as examples. I just picked random ones. I didn't pick on any one in particular. So if I'm giving an example and it's you guys I'm talking about, I'm really sorry or well done. But you'll see where I'm coming from. I just wanted to try and make this as realistic. So if there's any questions, please interrupt me by typing in, and Camille will say, Johnny, we have something you need to answer. But in the meantime, I'm going to crack on. So let's just start talking about the narrative. So this first section is if you need to speak to your boss about why you need to be doing something different, this next section is all for you. And the first thing you need to understand is that the world has changed. And the simplest way of thinking about it is the phrase zero click. You're going to want to remember that phrase because it's basically the reason why this is important. People, when they go to Google, the majority of the time, their searches go nowhere. That means they are zero click. People are not using the internet like they used to. They go into Google, historically, they'd find something and it'd go somewhere. But what's happening now, it's changed the way your stakeholders work. Now, you'll see I've given an example topic. This is something I thought I'm going to search on this. You may say, "Well, no one ever searches on that," but I was putting myself in the eyes of one of your stakeholders, and I was thinking, how would I maybe go to one of you to find information? So I thought, what kind of question would I ask? So I'm using this as a basis point. And what I would typically do in the past is I'd pick up my phone and I would ask that question. And then I would scroll past all those absolute, sorry to swear, bullshit ones that have got nothing to do with it. You know what it's like. You'll see it and they go, yep, they sponsored that, or they bought those keywords that's got nothing to do with it. And you scroll past it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you may be guilty of that. And then what you now do is you'll go to your Gen AI of choice, you ask the same question, you go, perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Bloody hell, I'm just going to take that one. Now, I want to ask you a question and just see if you're nodding. Are you one of those people, if you do go to Gen AI and you ask it a question, do you sort of see that first result that comes in and go, yep, I'll take that? If you're nodding, you're like me. Because much as I'd like to live in a world where people do sort of think about and ask follow-up questions, a lot of the time that Gen AI, it's really good. And people don't question it, which is why it's so important that that answer that comes in is spot on. Now, before I give you more stats, let's explain a bit about behavioral science because what's happened is we've gone from critical thinking. Critical thinking is when we did what I talked about earlier. You pick up your phone, you scroll past those obviously sponsored ones, or they bought the keywords and it's just irrelevant. Anchor bias is where we are now. You see that first result that comes in, and you go, perfect, I'll take that. I'd love to live in this utopian world where it's not like that. But because that's how people behave, we need to realize that and change the way we approach it. Now, they say by 2028, more people are going to be using Gen AI than Google. I actually think it's going to happen this year. I think this data is out of date. But if I look around some of the data points, there's a lot of proof in this. I mean, if you think about the audiences, 77% of Gen Z are already going to Gen AI over Google. And if you're thinking, well, what about, forget about buying stuff, what about the B2B space? Well, in the B2B space, it's in the 90th percentile. That's where a lot of your stakeholders are. And the fact is, more people are going to Gen AI than ever before. But they're going and they're using it differently. Historically, people went to Google to find information. They're now going to AI not to find information. It's become a creation and a decision engine. And so let's just backtrack a second. There's been a few fundamental shifts. Shift number one, zero click. People are going to Google, not going anywhere. Shift number two, more people than ever before going to Gen AI. Number three, when they do go to Gen AI, they're making decisions. They're not looking for information. They're going to say, do I do this or do I do that? Where do I find this? Tell me information on that. I'm looking to whatever. But they're making decisions in the Gen AI. And the fact is, your audiences have changed. But have we as marketers? The next set of data I'm going to be sharing with you is all around your area. And I've just used that example question I picked before. And here's the first learning I found. In your space, in the NGO space, 83% of AI visibility is driven by citations from earned media. This is where you guys are hanging out. And one of the reasons why I said it's your responsibility is who understands earned media more than you lot. And let me tell you what that top 35, what that 83.5% isn't. It's not the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the FT. It's not anywhere that's got a paywall. It's a whole different set of media. Now, unusually, and this is unusual because if I looked at the B2B space or the B2C space, the social figure would be about 8%. The social figure would pretty much be Reddit. But you know what? On your space, I didn't really find Reddit being too much of an impact at the moment. It's not TikTok or it's not Instagram because Gen AI can't look at those. It would look at Reddit, but I'm not really seeing it turn up in your space. But what I am seeing is that your own websites and your competitors' own websites are making a massive impact on Gen AI results. So we asked a few questions because people don't just say, which is the best NGO? They ask, which different ones looking at economic, and it lists lots of different ones. So these are the top 10. When I asked that question before, and just to remind you what question I asked, it was this one. What are the most widely used sources of long-term macroeconomic data? And when I asked Gen AI, it basically said, this is your top 10. I don't know whether any of you on this call are represented by any of these organizations, but there's not a massive difference between first and 10th place. But you know what? People don't ask that broad question. They ask niche questions. So if they ask niche areas, if they're asking about economic data, they're going to this company, the World Bank, I think that one is. If they're going to green finance, they're going to OECD, and you'll see how it changes for different questions. So you need to understand who is winning in different areas. Now, you may say, well, how did you do this? Well, the way that we did this is we analysed your world. I'll analyse just in October 1.7 million questions asked of Gen AI. And the results were staggering because I actually went into it thinking it would be information seeking. Only 37% was. You know what they're doing? They're having conversations about the results. 57% of it was discussing what's going on. This is what's happening. People are using Gen AI not only to find information, but to query, to discuss it, to find conclusions, to understand what's happening, to draw insights and trends. Don't you think it's really important? Because I showed you before this slide. Let me just bring it back up again. So much of this comes from your website and from competitors' website, competitor NGOs, and from earned media. Don't you think it's important that this is as relevant as possible? So we'll try to find out why it picked these sites. Well, this is that same list again. Why did it pick certain sites? So we looked at the sites that were picked, and a few common criteria came out. The point is, you may have already had in your past your tier one stakeholder list. You may have already got your tier one media list. The point I'm trying to make here is you now need to have your tier one Gen AI list. because when it comes down to it, your customers are asking questions. Your stakeholders are asking questions, and they're going straight to Gen AI. They're not necessarily going to your website. Gen AI only has a quarter of a second to scour the world to get as much information as it can and make a recommendation. And if your website or if that news article or that earn site has the information that's most easy for it to copy and paste because it's semantically similar to the question that was asked, then it's going to take that. Let me just pause for a second because I've gone through quite a bit of stuff and see, Camille, are there any questions in the chat we need to address? If not, I can carry on.
Yes, we have one question from Jose from the World Bank, who was asking what tool did you use to do the analysis of the 1.7 million citations?
Hello, Jose. Good to hear from you, my friend. This was used Profound. Now, there's loads of different technology companies out there. I'm just going to talk very briefly about the tech. I'm a bit of a tech geek. You know, I like showing my tech stack whenever possible. There's a lot of snake oil. There's a lot of companies saying they can do a million different things. Let me tell you why I picked Profound, and you guys can pick whoever you want. There are different approaches to the technology. In its simplest form, we ask a series of questions. The vendor will take those questions and ask Gen AI those questions thousands of times a day. And it will see how often, when people say, where's the best source for macroeconomic data, the World Bank turns up, or the OECD, or the IMF. And that's how that visibility score is done. There's a problem with that, though. The first problem is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. By asking the questions, you increase the visibility because you're asking it millions of times a day. So the first thing you need to check is it done in a sandbox environment where your questions don't influence the results? The second part of it is you need to analyze, are people actually asking those questions? And the way you do that is I use Profound because they actually buy the queries that people ask. A billion queries they had in already, and I'm asking millions more every single week as more and more people use it. If what people are asking align with the questions that we're asking, game on. Most companies can't do both, and that's why I picked Profound. Jose, I hope that answers your question. But as you always know, it's never just the tech. It's always the process, knowing what to do with it, and the people who can actually get the most out of it.
Thanks, Johnny. And maybe then we have two questions on the, we have a ranking on the slide. And so we have some question from Rose at the IMF, who was asking if OECD is first because we are located in Europe. And another question also from UNICEF, from Foluke, who was asking why is UNICEF not in the top 10, and do they need to change their top tier list? So maybe you can explain a bit on the ranking on the left.
Sure. So I would like to say the OECD are top because they asked me to organize this webinar. They slipped me some cash and they bribed me. No, they didn't, but that would have been fun. The reason why they're top is because they did some core things better than the others. But to be clear, no one is doing a good job. Nobody. This is not even close because people are where they are without even knowing what good looks like. So you heard me before saying there's such simple things to do and no one's doing them. So I'm going to share with you some things you can all do to make a big difference. And we're going to go up to that a bit later, but anyone can take a lead. Do not worry that you're not visible at the moment. This is just the top 10. But there are other areas that we could be looking at that would make you, that you may take a lead in. Remember, it's not the overall thing, it's about niche topic areas. And within the niche topic areas, we also need to understand where we are, but we can discuss that later. I'm going to keep going, Camille, and we can have more questions later on. Now, some of you may be saying, well, we've got a team that do this. We have an SEO team, and the SEO team are spending a fortune on backlinks and on authority. Is anyone here? Could you just put in the chat a little thumbs up or Yes, if you are in the SEO team. And Camille, maybe you can tell me if we've got many people who work in the SEO area.
10%. Yes, we have not so many for now.
Okay, which is fortunate because I'm about to really upset you. Um, because unfortunately, all that work you're doing in SEO, it doesn't really make any difference to Gen AI. I'm really sorry. There is just a 19% overlap between what is happening on SEO and what turns up in ChatGPT. It just doesn't make a difference. I am not saying stop your SEO. It's still really important. I'm just saying it doesn't make a difference to ChatGPT or Copilot or Perplexity. It does make a difference to the Google owned platforms, but it doesn't make a difference to the others. You know, all that work you've done on backlinks and website traffic, no difference whatsoever. So, what does make a difference? Well, let's explain that now, because the majority of you have got control over a few things. I've talked about your tier one media list, but the one thing you really do have control over is what you can do yourself. So let's discuss that for a bit. And I like to think about it by a simple phrase. You fish where the fish are. If you're looking for what you need to do, you need to think where your audience hangs out. So let's just look at the media list first of all. If I think about the media list, if I look at all Gen AI platforms, well, this is what it typically looks like, but you need to be doing this for yourself. Obviously, Reddit's high. It's less important for you guys. YouTube is really high. We're going to get up to that in a minute. Wikipedia is massive. We'll also talk about that. But let's look at the individual platforms. Now, if I'm thinking about ChatGPT, how do you know if your audience on ChatGPT? The simplest way of thinking about it is think about what phone they have. If your audience tends to use an iPhone, and for that you've got to be thinking, are they in North America? They're going to be iPhone users. If they're in the Nordics, they're going to be Android users. So think about the iPhone, think about what phone they're using. But if they are in North America, you've got to get your Wikipedia sorted. It takes a huge amount of content from there. You need to make sure your Wikipedia strategy involves sending them earned citations about why data needs to be changed. If you just say it yourself, they'll ignore it. By the way, I didn't answer your question before. Are they high because you're based in Europe? No. I have looked at worldwide global statistics. Um, I can't, not very good at China. It's got a lot of African countries, not all of them, but it's irrespective. This is just what it is on a global level. I would recommend doing reports on an individual geography level so you can have different strategies depending on the geography that you're in. Now, to Copilot, if your stakeholders tend to be enterprises, Copilot's your thing. Interesting about Copilot, they love Bing, so if you're not indexed on Bing, you won't be found. Now, the Google ones, both AI mode and overviews, it loves itself. Look how high it indexes Google. It's top of the list. So, you know what I said before about SEO doesn't make a difference? It does make a difference if you're using Google AI mode. Google also owns YouTube. Can I give everyone a really easy tip? You know all those YouTube videos that you have? Great. Gen AI can't read your videos. It can't look at moving images. But you know what it can do? It can look at the description of your video. So here's a very simple tip to get you to lead in this Gen AI visibility race. Get the transcript of your video and put it in the description. That's it. I'm not talking about subtitles, SRT files. I'm talking about the transcript. Put it in the description. Google massively indexes it. It will help your visibility. Same applies for overviews. Okay, let's move on to Perplexity. Perplexity is a weird one because Perplexity loves user-generated content, people talking, but it most specifically looks at semantic language. Semantic language is my answer using the same words in the same order, the same phrases as the question that was asked? If it is, it's most likely to take it. You think about Gen AI, it's going to go out there, hasn't got long, and if I write a blog post saying This is why these are the best places to get macroeconomic data comparing these five African countries. And someone asked the question, where the best place to get macroeconomic data across these five African countries? It's going to take that because it's most similar. So it loves that semantic content. So if those are the websites to help you think about your Gen AI media list, let's now think about what we can do about your own website. Is Jose still on the line?
Yes,
Well,
no, I think you
yes.
can, yes, you
Okay.
can on
Jose, I'm
yes.
really sorry for the next slide.
I am
It
here.
could have been
Hello.
anybody. It could have been anybody. But I wanted to show you some things you need to do about your own content. Now, the own content is critical because if Gen AI is going to take information from from media and from your competitors, from your website, you need to be thinking about the three Fs. The three Fs are, can it be found? What's the feel of it? That's the semantic language. And what's the format? So as a way of discussing can it be found, we've got to be thinking about JavaScript. This is the World Bank's homepage. This is what it looks like when I go to the World Bank's homepage. And as you can see, it's a nice website. I go down and it looks pretty nice. And it's great. In fact, it's one of the nicest websites I've seen. I'm now going to have a look at what the Gen AI sees when it looks at this website. Because to look at understand what Gen AI sees, I'm going to have to remove JavaScript because Gen AI cannot read JavaScript. So I'm disabling JavaScript here, and now I'm going to refresh the page. This is what Gen AI sees on the World Bank's website. I just find that incredible. Now, for those of you thinking I picked on Jose, and I'm really sorry, I could have picked on anybody, this is happening with everybody. I did it on Pepsi, their Cheetos website, full of Gen AI. I looked at Levi's, full of Gen AI. I've looked at Roblox, full of JavaScript. All of them. This is everyone. Website developers loves JavaScript because it makes the website look beautiful. Unfortunately, Gen AI cannot read JavaScript. If your website is built in JavaScript, it looks like this. And remember how we said before, how so much, I think it's 15% of Gen AI visibility in your space is built up across NGO websites. And your website looks like this. It's getting the information from competitors. But it may just be your homepage. Other pages may be fine, but at least your homepage look like this. Here's your next tip. Semantic URLs. What do I mean by this? Well, if your website, if your URL, that's the URL slug, looks something like this with these numbers and letters that don't mean anything, yeah, Gen AI just doesn't understand what's going on. But if it follows these five simple rules, length, descriptive, semantic language, format, and removing stop words, you'll increase your visibility by 11.4%. Since I did this slide, I've got a new tip. If I would have put dash December 2026 as the next bit, it would increase it even more because Gen AI has a recency bias and so it loves that. So that's another tip for you. Semantic URLs win. Next, meta descriptions. So I unfortunately picked on the World Bank before. Now I'm going to pick on the World Economic Forum. This is the meta description of World Economic Forum's homepage. If I was a user, a stakeholder, and I wanted to find out the latest information about economics, findings at Davos, Gen AI goes straight to the meta description before it goes anywhere else to find its information. This is exactly what you shouldn't be doing because it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell you describing how this can help you across broader topic areas. We've heard about message pull through. We now need to be thinking about pulling through, not your message, but pulling through your audience and your stakeholders' message. And that should be your meta description. You need to be talking to the language of your audience. Or as I prefer to call it, we are now marketing to machines. We're not marketing to humans, we are marketing to machines. But there's other things we can do. We can now look at blog posts and press releases. Now, historically, if I would have been talking about press releases, I would have said, you know what? Press releases are dead. Or to paraphrase Monty Python, they're not dead, they were merely resting. Because Gen AI loves press releases. You stick them on the wire, and suddenly this large language is all over the place and it can pick it up. I wrote a press release for a client of mine a few weeks ago, and I structured it in a particular way because I know what Gen AI likes. I didn't expect a single journalist to pick up on it. But you know what happened in 20 minutes? Gen AI was recommending us. 20 minutes from sending out a press release to Gen AI recommending us. Same goes for blogs. I want you guys to write blog posts when you look at your view account and it is zero, a big donut, and I want you to be happy with that. I want you to write blog posts that no humans read. I want it to be structured well. I want it to have good content, but I don't care if no human picks it up again. We're marketing to machines. You are writing blog posts frequently, weekly, minimum, because Gen AI has a recency bias. You've got full control over this. That's why it likes blog posts. So, what should you guys be doing? Well, there's three things you need to be doing. Number one, do a benchmark report. Understand where you are. Understand your visibility. Understand how that visibility changes from France to Germany to Italy to Nigeria. Understand how it looks on ChatGPT versus Copilot versus Perplexity. Understand which is your tier one media list for Gen AI. Understand what's good or bad about your competitor site or your site. If you've got all this and you'll have a few KPIs, for those of you at MEC, you know we love KPIs. Here's a few. Gen AI visibility. How much of my content influences Gen AI visibility? How much are people using Gen AI to search for the phrases that are important to us? What is our share of AI visibility on the different niche topics that are important to us and how that changes? This is your benchmark, so you know what you need to do. Next, optimize. This is your ongoing strategy. Maybe you're going to have a weekly blog update. Maybe you're going to be changing your structure of your website to have formatting correct of the different content and looking at URL slugs. Maybe it's engaging with different media. Maybe it's doing partnerships. That's your ongoing strategy. But you also need to defend. You need to mitigate against the things that are negative against you. Okay, I'm going to just take a pause here. Camille, any questions before I do my final tips?
No, I think maybe you can go until the end, and after I'll open the floor for question.
Perfect. So let me give you guys 10 tips. Number one, you've got your tier one media list already. You now have your tier one Gen AI list. You've got your tier one stakeholder list. Now you've got your tier one Gen AI list. Number two, it loves press releases and blog posts. Get out there, distribute it on the wire, host it on your homepage with structured format, H1, H2 sentence. Number three, if you want to get the first answer, create answer first content. Things it loves, FAQ pages, how-to guides. These are the things that it can just copy and paste and put in a Gen A answer. You need to be building those. Now, all of you have got amazing experts. Use them. Put them everywhere because Gen A will pick it up. And if you want to be brave about it, say, this is us, but this is them. This is how we differ. People do this. It's incredible. Be brave about it. We talked about YouTube. Stick your YouTube with transcripts. Reddit and Quora, less important for you at the moment, but that may change. We talked about your own website. We talked about meta descriptions before. We talked about, I'm going to focus on URL slugs, but there's JavaScript. There's another one I would recommend. Most websites in the world are built on Cloudflare. Cloudflare have a privacy setting that they introduced a few months ago that says, do not allow this website to train large language models, and the default setting is on. If it's on, you guys can't influence Gen AI. Just turn it off. We talked about fixing negative responses to mitigate, identify those sources and mitigate against them, publish frequently. But the number one tip above everything else is start. No one's doing a good job. Remember what I said at the beginning? This is a pivotal moment when no one is leading. I know the OECD said, not the UNICEF said, why aren't we leading? Doesn't matter. No one's doing a good job. Just do a few of these things and you'll be right up there. So, start. And because I'm in PR, I like to finish off with a manifesto to all of you. It's time to rip up your playbook. The world has changed. Public relations professionals are uniquely positioned to lead this transformation. We understand earned media. We know how to craft narratives. We are the architects of the new AI-driven communications landscape. The future has arrived. And my question to all you guys on this AMEC NGO call is, are you ready to lead? Thank you very much for your time, everybody. I'll now stop and we'll have some questions.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you. Maybe I'll start to with Jose if he wants to say something, because we took the World Bank website, but as you said, I think for most of us, if we deactivate JavaScript, we won't find a lot of information. And I think Jose, you might have a few things to add.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Johnny. Spot on, Johnny. I didn't feel being put on the spot too much. You're absolutely right. We're making that case a lot. There is a trend here at the bank of people doing immersive stories, and they use a tool. I'm not going to mention the vendor, and again, it uses very heavy JavaScript. There's no text. There's nothing for the crawlers to really sink their teeth on. So we're making, we are in a campaign here for folks to add on the page the right tags, titles, content that can be read. We're adopting schema.org throughout the pages and so forth, but really describing what the page is about, that's really critical. Another piece of advice I would also say is to really work with your IT team to look at your log files. Look at what is the success rate of all AI LLM models. When they come to the page, what is the 200 response that they get, which means that it's a positive response. They are able to get and read the page, and you'll be surprised. In our case, for ChatGPT user is only 49%. ChatGPT bot, which is the one that kind of more learns, is 63%. That compares with 89% for Google. So you have to have a crawl strategy, be bot friendly. So that when a bot comes in, you kind of open the doors for that bot, and don't feel that is a threat. So you need to work with the IT team, with the OIS, to identify the good bots versus the bad bots, because that's a world that's changing very fast. And you can very easily blacklist, what is a good bot that's come here to really get the content from your page, put it in front of users. And it is true, we all have a lot to learn. I actually disabled the JavaScript in golin.com, and I also got some blank spots at the top, Johnny. So there is, we are on a journey here. So indeed, we see JavaScript growing in many places, but that's what I want to add. Thank you so much. Always great learning from you, Johnny.
You know what? Thank you, Jose. By the way, one of the tips I give is for people to be community managers on Reddit. Just so you know, my team almost listened to me. They jumped into Reddit and the next day they got banned. So everyone is learning. So everyone feels like there's so much to do. We're all figuring it out as we go along. The fact that my marketing team got banned on Reddit within 24 hours just shows we're learning. But it doesn't mean it's not important.
Mm-hmm. So there are a few questions on the definition of earned media, and then I just want to say to the one who wants to ask question, if you raise your hands, then Julie can give you the authorization to talk, so you can ask your question live. So if you can just explain earned media, Johnny, and then we'll have other question.
So from my understanding, you want to know the definition of earned media. Earned media is when somebody talks about you rather than you paying for attention. If I took out a billboard and put out all the information about you, walk past, I'm paying for your attention in front of me. If you took out an advert and put it in front of Netflix, I'm paying for your attention, you have to look at it. Earned media is when people voluntarily talk about it. It's when a media article read about publishes content, your thought leadership. It's when you have your own insight and people refer to it. It is not paying for attention, it's earning attention. That's what earned media is, and it's what public relations is all about. I'm going to be a bit crude, and I'm sorry about this, but I'm going to tell you how it's also known in the industry. It's the difference between saying, I am really good in bed, and my girlfriend saying I'm really good in bed. That is the difference between earned media. One is me saying it, earned media is when someone else says it. Okay, I'm sorry for
Great
the
example. That we will remember it now. So, yes, maybe Edgar, I think you had a question.
Yeah, hi. So thanks a lot for the presentation. I also followed it when you had it in London, so always good to hear. In our side, we are very much also trying to disseminate the ideas, but of course, organizationally, it's difficult. As soon as we told our web team that, by the way, our whole press release website where we host all our press releases of the European Commission is purely JavaScript, so maybe we should look at that. There was a lot of different reactions, I'd say. But my question is actually more about how do we. I'm very confused, and I'm sorry if it's a stupid question, but I'm very confused about how good is the data about how visible people are on AI, because I see there's a lot of services now coming about saying, well, we will track your AI visibility and whatnot. And I'm very lost as to how is this exactly done? Where do these platforms take this data from? What kind of data do they take? When we talk about AI visibility, I mean, of course, we're saying that younger people are using now chatbots as search engines and they're giving us, but 90%, I'm sorry, I joined a bit late, so I might have faced, but like the vast majority of searches are still on Google, the vast majority, but it's just Google AI summary. So is that counted under AI visibility if Google does an AI summary and it uses your content or it doesn't? And as I understand, these companies are very, I mean, protective of this data of how do people actually use their chatbots? What are the kind of questions? So for me, there's a lot of kind of black box elements in the space, and it's not clear at all where is all this kind of data and information coming from, telling me some number and what's behind it. I'm sorry if my question is a bit vague, but I'm trying to encapsulate
I don't know whether you were on the call earlier when I explained about how the different technologies work and why I discussed.
Sorry, yeah, I might have missed that bit.
So for your benefit, I'm not going to go over that again, but you are right. There's a lot of snake oil out there, and it's important to make sure that you're not talking to yourself. I'm not going to answer the same question again, but Edgar, I did go into this in quite a bit of detail. Okay. I encourage you to listen to the recording, and if you're not happy, please contact me and I'll explain the different vendors out there and why some are good or bad or different.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Edgar, for your question. And the next question will be from Folike from UNICEF.
Thank you, Camille, and thank you for this opportunity for those of us who couldn't be in London. Hi, Johnny. Thanks for another wonderful presentation that we won't forget easily. I'm asking about the effort, the time, the resources we will need to transition from our usual SEO to now generative engine optimization, given that we are in this funding crisis situation. There's so much crunch in how much resources we have now and will continue to have in the next 2 to 5 years. And the first thing, like Edgar mentioned, is the colleagues in charge of the website will be like, right now we are so under-resourced, we are so overwhelmed. Are there like funding opportunities or ways that we could craft proposals specific to draw in funding around this visibility measurement and all of that? Thanks, if you have any tips.
I think this is a bit outside my remit, how you get funding to do it. What I would say, if it's too hard to get to change your job, to change the website because resources are elsewhere. There are other things to do. Remember, Gen AI is influenced by earned, by social, by owned. Now, if you can't do things on your own side, maybe you could do blog posts or press releases. If you can't start changing JavaScript or meta descriptions, maybe you can start engaging with different media outlets or doing partnerships. Maybe you could be the first person in an NGO to start having an active Reddit presence or Quora presence, other sites. So do what you can do, but just do something. Don't just say, well, we can't do anything because we're back in the queue on changing it from JavaScript. That's just one of many things we can do.
Thank you. And maybe a follow-up question, because I know that many of us have also those, are facing issue with budget, or we have also some NGOs with very small budget. Are there anything that organizations should or could stop doing in the age of AI to maybe put, resources on those on increasing our visibility on Gen AI? Are there things where we could maybe spend less time?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't really follow, Camille.
Yes. I'm wondering if there are any communication action that organization should or could stop doing in the age of AI.
No. To be clear, what I'm talking about is being additive. The reason why you're doing certain things is because they're really important. Unfortunately, a whole new channel opened up overnight. This is an additive approach. I'm not saying stop your current approaches with your stakeholders. It's really important. I'm saying we've got an additive thing to do. This is net new, not replacement.
Yes, very clear. Thank you. And I think that the one question was, you showed us, a lot of information on visibility on AI by topics. Also, I think that's super important to look at not the overall visibility, but also by theme and going more granular. One question was, how will you report on the impact of chatbot and the visibility there compared to traditional media, mentions on social media? When you set up some KPIs, how will you compare those different metrics?
Well, you need to be thinking about where your audiences spend their time. The significance of Gen AI for you is around audience behavior. So if your audience spend 80% of their time on TikTok, that's where you need to spend your time. Conversely, if your audience is finding information, a huge amount of it on Gen AI, you need to proportion your marketing and your KPIs accordingly. The fact is, the information journey has shrank using Gen AI. As opposed to previously people going to numerous stakeholders for discussions and numerous websites and numerous media outlets, they're now going to one place and getting a lot of the information. We have to change with it. I can see in the chat people saying, what are the KPIs you should be using?
Yes.
Well, let me just list a few of those. Your share of AI visibility is critical, number one. And with that, you should be looking at not just what number you are, what rank you are, but also what percentage that is, and also relative to your peers. You'd also want to be looking at that not just at the broad topic, but at niche topics that you want to be a leader in or that you want to emerge into. You then want to be looking at the work that you're doing in your own website, because you've got most control over that. How much of that is influencing Gen AI? And is that increasing or decreasing? Also your competitors. Have a look at the work you're doing with individual media outlets and seeing if that's being picked up in Gen AI. Look at the sentiment, seeing how much of that negative commentary that you've managed to deal with by mitigating against and reducing that percentage. Those are just a few of the sample KPIs I would look at.
Johnny, thank you so much. This is super helpful. One thing that we are struggling with, even if you kind of know your visibility in these LLMs, then it's still somewhat of a black box on who is really using these LLMs. And as the IMF, we've been making an effort to really understand the audiences that we're reaching. But now that we kind of have sorted out that picture more, here comes AI. And now we really have no clue because we're not getting any data from these different LLMs. So are there ways to really kind of see who we're reaching with the help of AI? Because that's a question that I can't answer.
So there are numerous studies out there, Adobe, Forrester, Gartner, ourselves, but which people are using Gen AI. A lot of the Gen AI platforms have basic demographic data. It's not good enough for you, to be clear. You can focus by different country and basic types of demographics, but for your area, do the research. You guys are one of the most, you guys turn out more research than anyone else. Do the research, find out. Maybe it should be an NGO study about use of Gen AI. But if it's like any other industry I'm in, I'm expecting you're going to be around the 90th percentile of people finding information about your space through Gen AI.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Is that all, Camille?
I think there was one comment on regarding the possible mitigation of negative sentiment. You mentioned, sentiment, and if you can say anything more about negative sentiment mitigation.
Okay. I sort of sigh a little bit because for those of you who know me, may know that I'm not the best fan of using positive or negative as a metric of choice. I think it's uncouth. I think it's unrealistic. I think there's a difference between disliking and hating and liking and loving. And especially some of the areas that you guys are in, you're talking about famine or water shortage or vaccines. It's inherently negative topics that's hard to code. Nevertheless, what you can do is a lot of these tools, it can analyze the general tone of the answers. And then you can see whether that tone is positive or negative. It will code it for you. And then it will say, how did it get that answer? What is the source of that citation? And then you need to outreach to those sources to change what's being said. Or maybe do more stuff in the counter view so that it saturates with an alternative narrative.
Thank you.
Okay,
I think
guys.
yes. No, I think it's a good point. And there was one last comment about fake news, disinformation, and I think that would be something for the NGO to actually we need to get organized to make sure that reliable content from our organization are properly sourced by those LLMs, so they are not overloaded by less reliable information. So that would be something we will need to monitor and understand also better. We are nearing towards the end of the session. We had first said 45 minutes and we are a bit over. So Johnny, a big thanks to you. The recording will be available. The slides will not be shared. And if some have some specific question, I would encourage them to contact Johnny. And a big thanks to you for this analysis and presentation, Johnny.
No, my thanks to everyone for taking the time to listen to me grow passionate about a subject that I think is really important. Let me just restate the most important action from today. We are now marketing to machines. Don't wait for perfect and just start. No one is doing a good job. Just start now. Even if it's just adding a transcript to a YouTube video. Please just start. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been wonderful speaking with you all.
Thank you, Johnny. Bye-bye. Thank you.